episode next
Yeah.
month because I'm gonna eat.
All right, so
Well-
we're going to be fast and furious today.
So hopefully,
I spent some time last week talking about fathers, stuff. Thought it was quite interesting. I actually sent it to my dad. He had some comments about it. Pretty much the same comments as everyone else had in class. That's up on the YouTube thing. I guess those, like Charles, if you want to watch that. And then we dove into Jeremiah, just the first part of it. So we have 2 sessions I got to put in today, just to be caught up. But what's nice is I think next week we're not having any. Yeah, is it next week?
Next week, no, you're
Yeah, next
just
week
the
is not
breakfast and
groups.
then just breakfast and then extended service.
So they're going to do it kind of like what they did for the Easter service. I mean, I don't know if the service will be outside. But no, we had a good time yesterday. It was hot. I was quite thankful that it was pretty much in shade
And the breeze.
and we had a nice breeze. I got to talk with Tom and Catherine. Tom is Catherine's father, and Tom and his wife, was it Linda?
Yeah.
Linda's the one that had hip surgery on one side, and she's supposed to go back later, have hip surgery on the other side. They're actually from a Lutheran church. He is interim pastor for that church. But it goes to show, not to toot our own horn, that we were there to help them out, and no one was there from their church. I don't know if it really says anything about them at all, but I was thankful that we had who we had to help, and those who, I know we had people that couldn't help because of work and other plans, and that's fine. But I had a good time. I was exhausted, and I'm sore now. Yeah. But I got to talk to Tom and Catherine. I mean, we left Catherine in tears when we left. She was very thankful. Very thankful. And Tom made a comment on his Facebook how grateful he was. Now, he has a vertebrae that they think is cracked or something like that, so he couldn't really help, although I thought he helped pretty good.
That mower, man.
The mower?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But it was a good time. I can't wait to do it again. Hopefully, as my wife says, hopefully when it's not 100 degrees outside.
Yeah,
We're gonna-
we're gonna do community service either in AC or when it's fall.
But on the flip side, God calls, God calls. And so I had a conversation with Pastor Brewer, and we'll talk about that after this lesson if we have time. But I sat with him Thursday for an hour and a half. So we had some pretty tough love conversations. But it was all good. Really good. I was explaining to him about my vision for the class, my vision, and hopefully it's going to be y'all's vision too. We'll talk about it later. Move on from there. So let's go ahead and continue. So let's go to Jeremiah. Go ahead and flip your Bibles to Jeremiah 7 or your phones. So I'm gonna recap what we had gone up to, but it's been a whole week, so I'm gonna read through this right quick. Actually, let me go through to the point where we stop. So Jeremiah 7 is when Jeremiah actually goes up to the temple and he speaks to the people that are coming into the church. And he's pretty much telling them what y'all are doing is wrong. Y'all are learning about false prophets. Well, you're doing bad things on the outside and then coming in thinking that you're now safe because now you're in the church. And so we talked about here is the difference between fake worship and real. So like this fake money here, you're not going to buy much with it at a convenience store, but it's going to do well in a game, right? We're not trying to play game with God here. The real money here is that's what you're gonna be able to buy things with. But being genuine in your or truthful in your life. Quit being fake. Try to be real as much as possible. And here we talked about the temple, the layout here. Imagine, okay, so we had the Gentiles in here, and then we had this in here where the women of the Jews were able to stay, and then inside were the men, and then we had the holy place, and then the Ark of the Covenant here. And we'll talk about the Ark of the Covenant. That's actually a very important part of our lesson today. So just remember this layout. Jeremiah was at the steps here talking to people as they were coming in. And I talked about where, imagine if we had a Jeremiah come to our church at our doors telling us that what we're learning here is wrong. You know, I don't think that guy's going to last very long. He's going to get escorted off the property here. But we just have to make sure that if someone comes up like that, how grounded are you in your faith to know what's being taught? And are we willing to listen to what's being taught? So we went into talking about what is the difference between listening and hearing. People were going into the temple, they were hearing what he was saying, but they just weren't listening. And we involved that as in our spouses. We listen. We hope we can listen to understand and not listen to respond. And I'm a failure at that every once in a while. Probably more than that. I'm glad she's holding that. Tyler. Tyler.
He's a good distraction for you too.
Okay. So it's just explaining to listen, to understand, and not to respond or ignore. And then we talked about why do motives matter so much more than the motions of worship. And I got tongue twisted on that last week. So we just got to make sure when we come to church, we're not using it as a scapegoat to hopefully, as they were doing, and this time in Jeremiah, as long as I go to church, then whatever I do outside the church is okay. And that's how they were trying to do their life. And I can't say I've been like that myself, or haven't been like that myself, right? Just being truthful about me. So that's just making sure that our motives are in line with our motions when we come to church. So Jeremiah goes, he talks about, let's see, in verse 3, let me read that right quick. This is what the Lord of armies, the God of Israel, says. So he says this right at the entrance of the church. Instead of saying God said this, he tried to emphasize more on actually where it was coming from, the Lord of armies. And even that didn't even work. So they believe going to church continues their good graces with God. They consider church as home base. I know I'm going fast, and I apologize, but we have a lot going on. Hey, so they felt like it was home base because the Ark of the Covenant was there. That's a key point, okay? So we need to think about that here in just a minute. I want to share that. How it was like a good luck charm, right? The Ark was a good luck charm. Anyone carry a good luck charm every once in a while with them? Or think of a ritual that you do, even though you know it probably doesn't make a difference. Anyone have anything like that?
I use pipe dope and Teflon.
What is it?
I use pipe dope and Teflon.
Pipe?
Dope and Teflon.
You only have to use
When
one.
they put joints together,
Oh,
threaded joints.
so you carry that as a good luck charm?
No, it just.
No, it's
says
just something he does.
something
It's
is
like,
Oh,
necessary.
okay. Well, yeah, of course. Of course. I have a coin that I carry. I forgot to carry it today. I carry it when I go to work. And it's a coin that has the angel, Saint Michael on it. I'm not Catholic at all, but it's got the Saint Michael on one side, and he's the angel, stepping on a person. Have you seen that? You know what I'm talking about?
Don't you have a couple in your car?
Well, that's my mom.
But I mean, like.
Yeah.
And then on the
like,
back
you got
side,
something?
Yeah.
and on the back side, see if I can remember, and I try to say it every day. It says, "Lord, give me the courage and the strength to defeat all my enemies. Embrace me with your invincible armor and keep me safe from harm's way." I don't think this would keep me safe, but at least it's a reminder to pray, right? And then I continue my prayer for that day, especially for school.
Peace of mind.
It is. It's a peace of mind. And this was a coin that some church on the north side of Fort Worth, where a priest actually prayed over. He might have dunked his holy water. I don't know. It was given to me, yeah. But I carry it when I work. Does it make a difference? No. Probably no difference than
Rabbit's foot.
a rabbit's foot or something like that, or yeah. So anyway, talking about the people of Judah using the Ark of the Covenant as a good luck charm. I'm going to tell you, or explain to me that what happens when you do that. Okay, so in verse 5 and 6, I'm going to start reading a little bit here. Instead, if you really correct your ways and your actions, if you act justly towards one another, if you no longer oppress the resident alien, the fatherless, and the widow, and no longer shed innocent blood in this place or follow other gods, bringing harm on yourself, I will allow you to live in this place. Remember, it's Jeremiah speaking, but it's God speaking through him. Okay, so basically, stop treating those less fortunate than you differently. Don't be deceitful. Act justly towards other people. Don't oppress the resident alien, the fatherless, the widow. Don't shed innocent blood. We won't get into this, and I wish we could, but they actually use children and sacrifice children. Yeah, pretty gruesome. And maybe later on in chapters, but I haven't seen that yet. Don't follow other gods. Don't bring harm to the we assume all things are being taught correctly from our teachers. So what are ways we trust in the church more than we do in God? Is there something about the church that we trust the church to do more than we do in God? Does anything come to mind when y'all read that? Now I'll explain a bigger one here. The biggest thing is when you sit in this class or anyone else's class, or you sit in a sanctuary, do you trust everything that I'm teaching you and the pastor teaches you without even looking at the word? I think sometimes, we should, right? You should trust me in what I teach. You should trust anyone else that teaches these classes. You should be able to trust. But this is what happened with Judas, with God's people. They trusted the priest to preach, the words that are coming from the priest, and they did what the priest said. And what it comes down to in Jeremiah is that the priests weren't preaching anything right at all. That's why in chapter 2 in Jeremiah, he first spoke to the priests, saying, hey, you're teaching bad theology. You're teaching bad things. Please stop. Teach what you're supposed to, what you have learned. But what it came down to is they were teaching for their own benefit. And so because they wouldn't listen, now here is Jeremiah in the steps of the temple trying to tell the people that what you're learning from the priest is not the right thing. Okay, so Does anything else pop up from that? What are ways we trust in the church more than we do in God? Anything? Y'all can think about that. Okay, let me move forward. So in verse 9 and 10, do you steal, murder, commit adultery, swear falsely, burn incense to Baal, and follow other gods that you have not known? Then do you come and stand before me in the house that bears my name and say, we are rescued so we can continue doing all these detestable acts? Does going to church free us to live any way we want?
No.
Does going to church free us to live? Do we think sometimes it does?
A lot of people.
Yeah, oh, I went to church. I'm good for the week.
Or you hear that live like the devil on Saturday night and
Oh, yeah.
first one in the pew Sunday morning.
That's it.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of it. No judgment here at all. Does going to church free us to live any way we want? So here in Judah, it's exactly what they were doing. They would steal, murder, commit adultery, swear falsely, burn incense to Baal, follow other gods. They thought it was okay because as long as I showed up at church, face, Ark of the Covenant, we're good. Just in case Catherine's all right. We're good. No, that's not it at all. There's another example of this, and I love to bring. Now remember, this is God talking to Jeremiah, and listen to this verse in verse 11. Has this house which bears my name become a den of robbers in your view? Yes, I too have seen it. He says a den of robbers. Does that actually, can you think of another time when that was said? A den of robbers? Is it jogging your memory at all? I'm glad it doesn't. Until I read this. This was just amazing. Okay. Here we are in the New Testament now. And now, in the New Testament, who's walking upon the earth now? It's Jesus, right? Oh, man. This is an eye-opener. Huge eye-opener. Let's see. We're in Matthew 21. Still didn't ring a bell, anyone? Just yet. Okay, here we go. I love this. Jesus went into the temple and threw out all those buying and selling. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the chairs of those selling doves. He said to them, "It is written, my house will be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a den of thieves." So now this is Jesus saying the exact thing as God was saying. I thought that was amazing. The exact thing, same thing was happening in the Old Testament, and now in the New Testament, and almost the exact same words were used. Anyway, that was okay. That was exciting. I can tell y'all we're just jumping for joy on that one. Okay. Any comments on that? Okay. So verse 12 through 15, this is pretty much where we left off. So I'm going to read it right quick. But return to my place that was at Shiloh, where I made my name dwell at first. See what I did to it because of the evil of my people Israel. Now, because you have done all these things, this is the Lord's declaration. And because I have spoken to you time and time again, but you wouldn't listen, and I have called to you, but you wouldn't answer, What I did to Shiloh, I will do to the house that bears my name, the house in which you trust. The place that I give you and your ancestors, I will banish you from my presence, just as I banished all of your brothers, all the descendants of Ephraim. Anyone know the story of Shiloh? Please say no. No, I don't. Okay,
No, tell us.
please tell us. Okay. So it's all geared around the Ark of the Covenant, okay? And where we're at is, okay, so the temple's here in Judah, right? In this area. But what he's talking about chapters before in 1 Samuel is what happened in Shiloh, which is right here. Okay? So now y'all understand the place where we're at. Shiloh. Anyway, okay. Here we go. This was awesome. This was awesome, but not awesome for the people. Okay? It shows how history repeats itself, the lesson to learn from. So, 1 Samuel chapter 4. And I won't read the whole thing. I just want to get to the nuts and bolts to it. That talks about exactly what he's talking about was what happened. That's what's about to happen to the people here in Judah. Okay. So hold on, listen closely. Israel went out to meet the Philistines in battle and camped at Ebenezer while the Philistines camped at Aphek. The Philistines lined up in battle formation against Israel, and as the battle intensified, Israel was defeated by the Philistines, who struck down about 4,000 men on the battlefield. Okay, here goes. We're talking about good luck charms now. When the troops returned to the camp, the elders of Israel asked, "Why did the Lord defeat us today before the Philistines?" They thought they were untouchable. Let's bring the ark of the Lord's covenant from Shiloh. Then it will go with us and save us from our enemies. Okay, we're safe because now we have the ark of the covenant. So the people sent men to Shiloh to bring back the ark of the covenant of the Lord of armies, who is enthroned between the cherubim. Eli's two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the ark of the covenant of God. When the ark of the covenant of the Lord entered the camp, all the Israelites raised such a loud shout that the ground shook. Yay, our good luck charm is here. The Philistines heard the sound of the war cry and asked, "What's that loud shout?" in the Hebrews' camp. When the Philistines discovered that the ark of the Lord had entered the camp, they panicked because they thought, that good luck charm, we're doomed now. And God has entered their camp. They said, "Woe to us. Nothing like this has happened before. Woe to us. Who will rescue us from this magnificent gods? These are the gods that slaughtered the Egyptians with all kinds of plagues and wilderness. Show some courage and be men, Philistines. Otherwise, you'll serve the Hebrews just as they served you. Now be men and fight." So the Philistines fought, and Israel was defeated, and each man fled to his tent. The slaughter was severe. 30,000 of the Israelite foot soldiers fell. The ark of the God was captured. Eli's two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, died. Two people was told to go retrieve the ark of the covenant, brought it to the Israelites, their good luck charm, thinking they were going to win, and they got defeated. And the two that went and brought it died. This part's amazing. I wish I could keep going. But eventually the Philistines took it to their village and everyone started dying. They said, you might want to return that. So they ended up returning it anyway. Read a digest version of that. So, it was exciting. I've read that thing about 500 times. It was awesome. Okay, so Israel was defeated by 4,000 men at first. They said to bring it back. They had to go retrieve. Then 34,000 men died there. So, in essence, did their good luck charm work for them? No, it didn't. So, here we are again in Jeremiah warning God's people as they were going into the temple where the ark was located. Do we think the ark is going to protect them this time? Doesn't look like it, right? Okay, so this is the end of session 3. We're about to go into session 4. So, some key points here. True worship is displayed through how we live. How are you living? Don't answer it.
Really deep.
What is one thing you need to do today? Don't answer it. Out loud. In James 1:22 at the very bottom it says, but be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. If how we treat others really is the barometer of true worship of God, then how would other people rate you? Don't answer that. Okay, that's for your personal affirmations. We must confront our sins honestly instead of making excuses for it. Okay. Okay. Any questions before I move into session 4? I'm sorry I'm not going to be as animated as I was in the last one because that first Samuel really got me. Because if you ever get a chance to read First Samuel, just as it sit down, you'll see exactly what happens to the ark and why they had to return it, even though God allowed them to take it. They ended up killing people anyway. On his own time, though. How do y'all like that logo?
Did you make it?
I made that.
You don't even know.
I'm proud of it. Now this is y'all seen this center of it, right? Okay.
Tyler doesn't like it.
Yes.
I was just hungry for the word. Here we go. That's encouraging. Thank you so much. You're welcome anytime. Okay. And we'll talk more about this stuff, especially in the next slide or two. So, what do you think when you hear the word covenant? This is where you guys get to interact now. Covenant.
Everything you just talked about right now?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Indiana Jones.
Oh, yeah.
Indiana
You know, that wasn't the response I was looking for, but you were right. I should have thought about that because the new one's coming out. I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah.
I mean, we binge watched. Was it 3 of them? It's 3.
No, it's 4 now. This is the 5th one.
And then the 4th. Oh,
This new one's a 5th one?
Mhm.
Oh,
Because there's 3 originals and then him and Shia LaBeouf had one.
okay. So
Like a
we.
crystal skull. Or
Yeah, the Crystal Skull.
All right, so we need to step up our game. Okay.
Probably all on Disney Plus if you look for it.
Yes.
Okay, so unfortunately, when I thought about covenant, I thought about wedding vows. So I guess I'm boring.
Oh
Oh,
yeah, that one.
that one.
That one, wedding vows.
Is that what we did?
Yeah.
We have one of those?
You have it on the wall.
I think it's Indiana Jones with whip.
You're still stuck on it.
We're still stuck on that.
Yeah.
Forget the wedding vows.
Right, yeah, he's all into the nerd stuff.
So he whispered it to you at the same time.
Oh,
so.
Yeah, we see where your brain's
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you make a covenant to God? Anybody?
Like a promise.
Okay, promise, good, I like it.
Vow, yeah.
Through our salvation, maybe? Hopefully, if it's true. No. Jeremiah made a vow to God to be exclusive to Him, only to Him, no other gods, right? What?
Parliament feel
Oh.
What happened?
well.
Uh-oh.
Good luck.
Thanks.
We've been there, we understand.
Right.
Okay, so,
I know.
Jeremiah made a vow to God to be exclusive to Him only. God wanted Jeremiah to be totally inclusive of words that He was speaking to them. In a sense, Jeremiah wanted Jeremiah to include all people, right? I mean, we should hold God into our hearts, right? But we should teach others about Him. Be inclusive. Okay. So let me read this passage unless anyone volunteer to read that. It'll be Jeremiah 12, 1 through 13. Yep. 1 through 13. Anybody want to read all those lost passages?
You are always righteous, Lord, when I bring a case before you. Yet I would speak with you about your justice. Why does the way of the wicked prosper? Why do all the faithless live at ease? You have planted them and they have taken root. They grow and bear fruit. You are always on their lips, but far from their hearts. Yet you know me, Lord. You see me and test my thoughts about you. Drag them off like sheep to be butchered. Set them apart for the day of slaughter. How long will the land lie parched, and the grass in every field be withered? Because those who live in it are wicked, the animals and birds have perished. Moreover, the people who are saying, He will not see what happens to us. God's answer.
We're going to stop there. So, John, will you read the rest after that? So, 1 through 4, I wanted to stop there because this is where Jeremiah is.
It says complaint, so just.
Yeah, so this is Jeremiah's complaint to God. He knows his heart. He knows, Lord, you know my heart. But here's my beef, basically. And so I wanted you to read his complaint first and then hear from a different voice. John, if you don't mind. Thank you so much.
It's like that saying, how can somebody fall in a pile of poop and get up smelling like roses?
Okay,
Verse 5.
Verse 5, yeah. If you have raced with men on foot, and they have worn you out, how can you compete with horses? If you stumble in safe country, how will you manage in the thickets by the Jordan? Your relatives, members of your own family, even they have betrayed you. They have raised a loud cry against you. Do not trust them, though they speak well of you. I will forsake my house, abandon my inheritance. I will give the one I love into the hands of her enemies. My inheritance has become to me like a lion in the forest. She roars at me, therefore I hate her. Has not my inheritance become to me like a speckled bird of prey? The other birds of prey surround and attack. Go and gather all the wild beasts, bring them to devour. Many shepherds will ruin my vineyard and trample down my fields. They will turn my pleasant field into a desolate wasteland. It will be a wasteland, parched and desolate before me. The whole land will be laid to waste, because there is no one who cares. over all the barren heights in the desert. Destroyers will swarm, for the sword of the Lord will devour from one end of the land to the other. No one will be safe. They will sow wheat, but reap thorns. They will wear themselves out, but gain nothing. They will bear the shame of their harvest because of the Lord's fierce anger.
God is angry. He is so angry. How you're supposed to go? How angry is he? You know. So one thing we didn't get to go over is in Jeremiah 7. We stopped at verse 15, but if you continue reading through that in verse 16, God even tells Jeremiah, don't even pray for them. Don't even pray for those people. So here we are.
That's weird. We're supposed
It
to pray
is.
for our enemies.
It is. And that was tough to hear that. That even God told them not even to pray for them. It tells you which state of mind that God is in. So now here Jeremiah is. He's like, okay, Lord, okay, question, right? Let's go through this. Let's, can we kind of spare these people? Why don't you just take the bad away? Do all this. So let's break it down for a minute. So in the beginning of verse 1, Jeremiah is basically saying, I know you'll be struck with me without being upset when I ask you. It's the conversation that I hope that we can have with our spouses. Hey, this is what's going on, and this is how I feel. So this is the point of hoping that your spouse can listen to understand. And this is the relationship that Jeremiah and God had. But he just wanted to make sure, hey, I had a couple of questions. Jeremiah starts with a question to God about something that he doesn't understand. The last part of verse 1, he says, yet I wish to contend with you. Why does the way of the wicked prosper? Why do all the treacherous live at ease? Please tell me I'm not the only one that gets to see that sees these people live in wealth. And I think, why does God allow them to live in wealth? To do all these things when they don't even do anything for God, probably even know God.
Probably the most famous that is Tom Cruise, Scientology, the Church of Scientologists and all that. You know, they're just extravagantly living, and you know, we all know Scientologists don't believe in God.
Scientologists don't live extravagantly. Tom Cruise lives extravagantly.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Tom Cruise, he's the most famous, like you said.
They're very-
Like God, almost.
Yeah, just using him as the most famous one because he's very much not outspoken, but he's out there about being a Scientologist, and yet he's living all extravagantly, but we all know they don't believe in God too. So
You would think that selfishly we follow God as best as we know how and can. That we should be the one having the lavish houses or whatever, right? But then would we actually trust God if we had all those things? It's kind of weird. There are some people who have abundance of money and they do things for Christ. There's no judgment upon that. But what Jeremiah's personally talking about are these people who, why do you allow them to flourish when you deliver them with all these things?
because our treasure is laid out in heaven.
You know? End of story. You just ruined my whole story. That is correct. That is correct.
Well, I have this conversation often at work because I have people that come and chat with me, and they're like, all these people that sit on their butts and don't do anything, and they come to work and they're lazy, and they always get the best shifts and they get paid more. And I'm challenged with, like, telling them basically, like, fight the good fight. Like, just know that we see these people and we see people like you, and it's about God's timing. Like, because the problem is, as humans, we're like, we want justice immediately. That person is lazy and they need to be fired, and so they want it on their timing, when ultimately it needs to be on God's timing. I tell people, like, you keep fighting the good fight. You keep being that good person. You come to work, you work hard, and I promise you, it may not be tomorrow, it may not be a year from now, but you are going to see that there's going to be a shift, that you will get what your dues, and those people will also get theirs. It just has to be on God's timing. And sometimes I want it on my timing, right? I want this person fired now, this person fired, I want the promotion now.
But
That's always the case, though.
Oh, yeah,
That's what I say, is that you're not responsible for the outcome, you're responsible for you.
how you react,
So,
yeah.
That's what I've been preaching to Luke lately, who's 14, because he sees, like, he's big in band, you know, and he wasn't complaining about it, he was just saying, I don't understand why so-and-so got brass member of the year. They don't do anything, and da-da-da. I was like, Luke, life's starting for you here, you know, it's a lot of politics, and who does what for who and all that. I say, you just keep your head straight, your focus ahead, and you worry about what you're doing, and that you're doing the best that you can do.
And also perception. I think as humans, because I have people that are like, well, so-and-so never got talked to, and they didn't get fired, and they didn't get penalized. I was like, how do you know? First of all, it's none of your business to know if someone got written up.
Behind closed doors.
Behind closed doors. So, but it is, I perceive that this person doesn't do anything, when maybe that's the light bulb moment for me to go have some grace and go, well, maybe other people saw certain things in that person, and that's why they got recognized. I don't know, so perception.
And what I like about hearing all that is that it might have been part of Jeremiah's upbringing too. You know, he was the son of a priest. They lived off of whatever God provided for them. And so he saw certain blessings upon people, but yet now God's having him go to people that are flourishing with riches. And hearing y'all say that, y'all understand, especially what you just said, y'all understand it's what we receive after this life is what makes us rich.
One of the biblical stories, if not probably the ultimate biblical story, is Job. Just to look back, as Christians, even though we're in human flesh, me personally, I can attest that I never envied my youngest brother. We've had this talk. He was once a full-work cop, had an incident happen, had to surrender his peace officer's license to the state of Texas. But he's many a times tried to throw in my face, I live in a $500,000 house, what do you live in? And he's tried to, you know, better himself than me. And I might not have been on that level work-wise and all that, but here I am. I'll probably push 100,000 this year, and you know, God has blessed me because I just do me. I don't worry about him. I never really have, other than being my brother in, you know, various situations. But you know, as human flesh, we have tendency to have jealousy feelings at times, but we gotta take a step back. And like I said, Job, just look at Job. He took everything from him, but he still stayed faithful.
So in chapter 2, you planted them, Jeremiah says, you planted them, and they have taken root. They have grown and produced fruit. You are ever on their lips, so far from their conscience. So these people were enjoying the fruits of God's labor. They had religion, but not a relationship with God. Side note, here's another, we're getting close to choosing our class name. This was a name that was recommended, The Bridge. See how I wrote the name on the side?
You should be a graphic designer. side gig.
Well, pastor was like,
Past life.
who'd you get to do all this? I said, well, I did it. Okay. So,
His days of policing are diminishing.
Right.
Oh.
yeah. Okay, so verse 3, it says, as for you, Lord, you know me, you see me, you test whether my heart is with you, drag the wicked away. He says, drag the wicked away like sheep to slaughter and set them apart from the day of killing. God, you know me to my core, and you will be the judge of my heart or my motives. So don't be mad when I say this to you. Sometimes we have to start a conversation like that with other believers. This is how I feel. Please don't hurt me. Please don't hurt me. But I'm talking to you as a friend. You know my heart. Let's show some tough love. So let's go through it. And that's what he's just talking about here. So, God, you are good, but why are so many bad things happening? Why are so many bad people winning? Are you really indifferent to the suffering of your people? Jeremiah struggled to grasp the situation that he was suffering for following God's call. Yet those who opposed God lived comfortably and got away with their sin. Once again, it's another situation. They have all this money, they're living lavishly, and here we are struggling. I think there's another deeper situation here. Because as when we read in this chapter, he knows, Jeremiah knows, because God's already said in previous chapters that the Babylonians are on their way. So I want to read this one verse alone. In verse 6. Even your brothers and your own father's family, even they are treacherous to you. So I think he knows that this is about to happen to his family too. And that's gotta hurt. You may hate some of your, I shouldn't say hate, dislike some of your family members. But to know that the Babylonians are about to show up and just put them to death, or I'd say this, but you don't really want that to happen, do you? I think his heart is broken. Just take out the bad ones, please, and just take care of them so we get this over with. In verse 4, how long will the land mourn and the grass of every field wither? Because of the evil of its residents, animals and birds have been swept away, for the people have said, he cannot see what our end will be. Jeremiah seems to have a big heart for those things that should not be affected by the wicked. The longer he allows God, these people to stay this way, the more likely the good will die, including vegetation, animals, and birds. The best way I could explain this, if there's a little fire right here in the grass, and you see it slowly burning away, just catching the next piece of blade of grass, are you going to sit there and watch it until it just becomes totally engulfs everything uncontrolled? Or are you going to try to flame it out? Or try to deal with it right here. That's what Jeremiah is trying to say. Hey, let's right here. So we don't let it get bigger because it's about to affect all these good people. That's what he thought.
The same concept in the military. When one messes up, they all mess up.
Yeah. What situations might cause a person to wander if God is just?
Murder. When one commits murder and there's indefinite evidence against, and they get a light sentencing, more or less, because of humans think it's just, or the ones that gave the sentencing, when the ones that were affected by it believe that person should have lost their life, a life for a life.
Anybody else? In verse 5, now this is where God responds, and I love it, because this is how my life is. Think about this as we go through this. Is God saying the picture is much greater than you can comprehend? It's a big deal, and so think about that for a minute while I read through this. Verse 5, if you have raced with runners and they have worn you out, how can you compete with the horses? So, God's first answer is to remind Jeremiah that he cannot do this task on his own strength, and also understood that Jeremiah was tired and confused. But he told him that it wasn't going to get any easier, that you're not going to be able to understand. He expressed that toughness will begin to feel like walking through thickets. So the end there says, if you stumble in a peaceful land, what will you do in the thickets of the Jordan? The thickets were actually in the Jordan, and that's where the lions and the dangerous animals would hide and wait for something to come by, and they would prance on it. That's just symbolism. That's actually reality, but that's symbolism of the way their life is. And for him, trying to understand that, he's not strong enough to defend himself against the lions and the beasts that are in the thickets.
Just like present right now. Look at the group that's fixing to go to Amazon. They actually, I believe I guess you would say, vet them. They ask questions and they go through thoroughly and make sure they're ready to go through this process. Because if you're not ready mentally, physically, emotionally, especially spiritually for the trip they're going, how can they go down there and show the way to those people when there's a whole different country, animal species, and dangers? They just go in belief that God is going to provide because they're believers.
The symbolism in this, that's good, thank you. The symbolism in this is that what's not shared here, but it is the truth. In the Jordan, when it rains, it floods through those thickets, okay? And then all those lions and beasts, they actually flee somewhere else. What do you think the flood represents in Jeremiah? Who's coming?
God.
The Babylonians. That's the flood that he's talking about. He didn't say it here, but that's what he's referring to. Okay. God never says it's going to be easy. Do we tend to find an easy route to satisfy doing work for God, or the feeling that God should be satisfied? Okay. So, do we tend to do things that we know that we're good at to serve God, to think that it satisfies God's work? Or do we find ourselves putting ourselves out doing what's uncomfortable for God? Think about that. Okay? It's good that we do things for God, to serve. But sometimes some people do it just because I know I can do it, it's easy, and I feel like I'm in good graces with God. Hold on. Hold that thought. Hold that thought. I'm going to try to finish this right quick. So, who do you trust more than anyone in the world? You want to have an answer? Let's go ahead and put God out of the way, okay? Trust God. Yes, God. Yes, that's true. Anyone else want to share anyone that you would trust anyone in the world? Trust more than anyone in the world? Sounds good.
Mr. Foster.
Mr. Foster?
Philip Foster.
You know what's funny is, unless it takes a minute to read the question, I don't hear, my spouse, right? Anyone else thinking about that? My wife's over there smirking.
You were the first thought.
You're right.
If it's not your spouse, there might be some issues, right? But I don't have time to go through the spousal part of that.
Mhm.
But who do you trust more than anyone in the world? That's God. But do you really trust God more than anything? Because there's some things you think you're hiding. And I would love to continue on this. But in verse 6, it says, even your brothers and your own family, even they were treacherous to you, even they have cried out loudly after you. Do not have confidence in them, though they speak well of you. What he's talking about is he's telling his family is saying, Jeremiah, you're crazy, dude. Whatever you're saying, you stop doing what you're doing. And Jeremiah is trying to be trustworthy to God and do what God tells him to do. God is reminding Jeremiah that this job is too hard for you and only he can do it. You gotta let it go. It's happening. It's happening. So I'm gonna kind of skip through this towards the end here. So something to think about with all these verses, and I did want you to go through and just kind of as your study this week in chapter 12, just go through it, think about it, what's being said, study it, understand it, so we can move forward. But something to think about: God is just, even when we don't see it on our timeline. We need God's empowerment to serve Him at all. It was tough to get up 8 o'clock knowing we were about to help these people out, knowing it was going to be hot. One of the reasons they needed our help is because she had saw a snake, copperhead. So we were about to embark in a situation that could have gone really wrong. I'm just thankful it went really right. How can we only worship God in a world so full of other idols and distractions? I don't think we do. There's some things that we kind of worship a little bit. And worship's kind of a strong word. We put it in front of God.